All right, friends. I don't know about you, but I am pretty pumped to start digging into our curriculum. So let's start. The first two texts we are going to be reading this year are both Native American creation myths. So, a creation myth is a narrative that explains how the world came to be and how people came to inhabit the world. So, the story we're reading today is Coyote Finishes His Work. It's a myth orally passed down by the Nez Perce people. So, storytelling was a huge part of their culture. Nez Perce actually means pierced nose, which is not at all an accurate description of the tribe. So, they did not wear nose pendants. People think the Frenchmen who gave them that name mistook the Nez Perce for another tribe. So, anyways, the Nez Perce fished, they hunted, they traded, they were experts in warfare, which sadly they had to use against the US government. So, I think it's important for us to acknowledge the history of the way our government has treated Native Americans and kind of keep that in mind as we read. In 1855, the Nez Perce and the federal government agreed to a treaty that protected 7.5 million acres of land to be used for their reservation. So, quite a bit of land there. Okay. Then gold was discovered on that land and the government started changing their tune. So in 1863, the government reduced that land to only 750,000 acres. Big difference there. Eventually, in 1877, their leader, Chief Joseph, surrendered, saying, "I will fight no more forever." Okay, so just keep those things in mind as we read, especially when we eventually get into our colonial period text. Always read with a critical eye as you see how these colonists portray Native Americans in their text. I think you will very quickly see it's not necessarily an accurate depiction of them. Okay. Moving on, there are a few literary terms that we need to be aware of as we read today. So, you learned yesterday about the 12 main archetypes. Just remember, those archetypes are repeated patterns. So, this can be a character, a plot, an image. You'll quickly probably notice that Coyote often acts as the jester. But as we discussed yesterday, people often fall into two or three types of these. So, Coyote is not just a jester, but he may be something else. Okay. Make sure you're tracking his actions and trying to determine his other types as you read. Today's new term is ambiguity. These are words and phrases that are intentionally vague and confusing. So try to find examples of this technique used within the myth and determine what it's used for. Give you a couple hints. Sometimes it's used for humor. Sometimes it's used to add mystery, so on and so on. And finally, in addition to paying attention to those things, try to determine what this text reveals about the Nez Perce people, their way of life. Start to infer things about their religion, their customs, their views on natures, etc. Okay. If you have any questions as you read this text and answer those questions, make sure you reach out to me.